Hey everyone, CW Music here. I'm CWD, and this is going to be a review of this new Cupcakke album, Ephorize. Let's go with that. Cupcakke is the alias of Chicago rapper Elizabeth Eden Harris. She's been around for a little while now. She's best known for putting out a couple of really sexually vulgar singles, namely the singles Deep Throat and Vagina. I don't think it should be that hard to discern what those songs are about. Pretty prolific as of late. This will be her third album in a row based on the fact that she put out one last year and I believe one before that, plus a couple mixtapes somewhere in between as well. I hear the name Cupcakke every now and again and not really think that much of it, since I didn't really feel all that interested in her body of work. But seeing as she had a new album come out really early this year, I didn't really have much else to kind of start dissecting and start reviewing, so I decided, okay, well, let's see what an entire project of Cupcakes has in store for the listener, since she definitely seems to have a lot of promise as a rapper and as a lyricist for sure. Add to that, the game is kind of lacking when it comes to female MCs that can spit and definitely have a lot to say, so this could be a refreshing thing for hip-hop for sure in the year 2018, in this decade for sure. So, to get this out of the way, when you do listen to this album, you are not going to feel the same way about it the first time you listen to it. And that's pretty much something that can be said of any album ever made, but especially with this one, because when I first heard this album, I thought it was dope. Now that I've heard it a few more times, I still think it's good, I still think it's likable, but not really for me. This album is about 47 minutes, it's about 15 tracks, so pretty standard for a hip-hop record that has no features and is basically just two verses and a chorus track for track for track, which is a good and bad thing, because on the one hand you do have the fact that there's not really a whole lot the album is going to offer here, but on the other hand it's not trying to do too much to win over the listener. Definitely had a lot of hopes for the album when I heard the track 2 Minutes. Really good song, even still a good song and one of my favorites on the album after listening to it so many times. The track itself is pretty introspective. She's talking about how she feels like she can't rest in the rap game, otherwise everything will be gone. So when she did Sleep, she lost a lot of what she gained, so she rationalizes that she can go to sleep when she's dead. A very vulnerable couple of verses about where she stands, not just in the hip-hop community, but in terms of where she stands with society as both a black woman and someone that leans towards bisexuality. A missed opportunity with this album has to be with the fact that she doesn't explore the topic of the LGBTQ community enough. The closest she does get to that, for the most part, would be the song Crayons, where she pretty much basically says, if you're a girl that likes girls, if you're a guy that likes guys, great. If you're transgender, great. Don't worry about what other people think about you. That's a good sentiment, and one that I agree with, but I don't think it was fleshed out all that well. I do dig the straightforwardness of it, but unfortunately it left not a whole lot it had to offer there in terms of a substantial message, which is unfortunate because for the most part you're getting a lot of songs that, on the one hand, you're dealing with a lot of songs that just upfront present the sex, and two, you're also getting songs that are more so about her standing and how she doesn't want to hear anyone shit and all that, which is cool. I'm fine with that topic, but the Achilles heel to this, however, is the fact that she is basically throwing out a lot of puns and one-liners that don't really add to a substantial verse or a interesting hook. Take the track Cartoons, for example. I dig how fiery the hook is, but there's just so much cartoonish similarities and allusions thrown into one 5 to 8 seconds worth of rapping that really doesn't really go all that well. I'm cocky like Johnny Bravo, blue balls like a smurf. Yeah. Puns get worse with the track Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Box me in like I'm Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Roll up and spray like Cinnamon Toast Crunch. It didn't really work all that well. And the track Wisdom Teeth, the hook doesn't really work all that great either when it comes to trying to connect. I'm real wise when I'm speak, I'm using my wisdom teeth. A good chunk of the puns and the punchline she uses kind of fall flat, and that's the thing, there's a lot of them in each verse on the album, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. Track Self-Interview, however, is an example of like the times it does work. She reflects on her come up as a woman from childhood to adulthood. She's reflecting on why it is she does some of the things she does, and she wonders why her life is more shittier than a zoo. I actually like that. I do have to admit that I did like how she described a dick after ejaculation during sex looking like a goose head. Oh my god. On the track Duck Duck Goose. That's the thing about this album. The sexuality and the sex that she describes is so vulgar and so vivid that you can't help but be like, oh damn, that's really what's gonna be like? The epitome of this would be the track Spoiled Milk Titties. I'm not gonna go into detail about that song. Listen to it to yourself. But basically there are moments like with the song Self-Interview where she gets vulnerable and introspective and emotional for sure. Like the track Single While Taken, where she talks about these issues she's having with the guy she's with. Namely how he's going out and being shady and kind of emotionally abusing her, so she gets to the point where she feels single but she's actually taken. She's out kind of getting the attention of other guys so that way she can feel secure and loved and all that because her boyfriend is not doing so at all. Which is a topic that's not really all that explored in hip-hop and a good chunk of music for sure. I'm glad that she is able to execute it on this track particularly well. So basically she can rap well, it's just the fact that she has to lean on these puns and these punchlines that are hit or miss for me that definitely cripples what she could be delivering on the album. Back to that, her song topic repertoire isn't all that fleshed out or interesting. I mean, you can rap about having sex in this regard. You can rap about being the shit in the rap game. You can rap about what you're gonna do to other people if they say otherwise or anything of that nature. But the main thing is you have to make it interesting and it has to keep staying alive. Take Danny Brown's Atrocity Exhibition, for example, or Schoolboy Q's Blank Face LP. Those albums didn't really dive into a whole lot that's deep either, but still maintaining a very interesting conceptuality to them, along with coming through with a lot of gritty wordplay. The rapping on this particular album is down. Like, there's no question that Cupcakke can rap well. It's just that I feel like she has a lot more room to grow when it comes to being a lyricist. But as far as the beats go, I don't really have anything too much to complain about here. I do dislike how one-dimensional it is in terms of beats. Apart from a couple of tracks, namely Total, which I think could easily get radio play with the sort of upbeat and EDM-ish choral break that's on here. The track Post Pit kind of leans in that direction as well. 2 Minutes is definitely intimate and vulnerable with the way it executes itself. I do like the piano line on the track Self-Interview. Essentially what you're getting with this album is a lot of nocturnal beats. The bass is definitely present at times, futuristic sounding. I do like the blips of piano chords that come up on certain tracks. The track Crayons actually has a nice MIDI saxophone to it along with the closing track Fullest. The track Navel has been compared to Future's Mask Off because of the working of the flute here, on the basis that there's a flute on a trap instrumental. The track Meet and Greet is pretty hard hitting. It definitely dives into the Chicago drill kind of music. So shout out to the producers Dev Stars and Tariq for definitely killing it when it comes to making solid beats. Even if the beats are pretty one-dimensional. I didn't care for what they did for Exit, though. It was a little skeletal, and I did not like the auto-tuned hook. Get the fuck in my way! Get the fuck in my way! And that's really all there is to say about the album. The beats are good, but not exactly great. And Cupcakke herself, while demonstrating a lot of capabilities when it comes to rapping really well and working all these words within the span of seconds, she is still trying to outgrow, or I would hope she was going to outgrow all these really weak punchlines that are the only things keeping the verses afloat. Some people have compared the absurdity of these punchlines and puns that she delivers throughout her verses to Ghostface Killah. I don't really see that at all. I mean, yeah, Ghostface Killah does come through with puns and lines that are absurd, but he does it in a way that's clever. She's doing it in a way that is just trying to keep the verse moving, but it doesn't really add all much. It's just more filler than anything. That's not to say I didn't like this album, because I did find the album likable. I did find what Cupcakke did on the album likable. I just found a lot of what happened when it comes to the verses, as well as the hooks, to be pretty lacking. What saves the album is Cupcakke's charisma and the beats, for sure, as well as a good portion of the times when the verses aren't making me roll my eyes or feel like that I just want the song to be over. I'm definitely going to be looking forward to what Cupcakke is going to do next, since she definitely has piqued my interest with a good portion of the tracks here, namely 2 Minutes, Self-Interview, Total, Single Well Taken, Duck Duck Goose, and to an extent Spoiled Milk Titties. There's definitely promise in what Cupcakke does as a rapper, but unfortunately I just didn't really find the full potential within this album in particular. But if you are looking for an underground hip-hop record that definitely pulls no punches and definitely has an honest and incredibly vulgar sort of atmosphere to it, if you like these kinds of beats, namely within the tropical house, drill, trap type of vibe, then you'll definitely get something out of this album. Cupcakke has got me interested in what she's going to be doing as an artist next, but she hasn't really won me over completely as a fan yet. Even though there were strong tracks on this album, I just couldn't, after so many times listening to it, ignore what was lacking with the meat of the album. This album is a plus 1.2 and a plus 3. I do recommend that you give this album a couple of tries, but I'm not going to be really returning to this album a lot, if at all, throughout the course of 2018. But if you give this album a listen, what you think of it? Did you like this album? Did you dislike this album? What was the reason for that? And what should you consider listening to and reviewing next? CW Music here, signing off.